Welcome to Partner Connection. I am Cameron DeBrew. I'm the pastor of Beulah Baptist Church and will serve as the host of this video series. Partner Connection is a platform where we can connect with our many ministry partners around the world and here at home so that they can share ministry updates, personal stories, and prayer requests. Thank you for watching and thank you for your faithfulness in partnering with God's people to grow His kingdom. I hope you enjoy this episode of Partner Connection. Well, welcome to this edition of Partner Connection. We are so glad that you are here today, and I am excited to be joined today by Mark Baumgartner, who is the Executive Director of A Moment of Hope. This is another one of our local ministry partners. Many of you are familiar with this ministry, and maybe you've even seen Mark in the media or on your social media feeds. This is the first time that I've had the opportunity to speak with Mark face-to-face, but I have spoken with him over the phone on a couple of occasions and have heard him speak at several events over the years. This man has a driving passion to stand for the unborn and to aid and resource young ladies who make the decision not to go through with aborting their child. Our partnership began about 2 years ago, and we are looking forward to this relationship growing over the years to come. So, Mark, welcome. We're glad that you're here with us today.
Thank you very much, Cameron.
So, like I said, this is probably the first time that our congregation is seeing your face, and maybe the first time that they're hearing about this ministry that is here locally. Tell us just a little bit about yourself personally.
Well, I'm from Ohio. I grew up there, went to Ohio University. A dream of mine had always been to be an airline pilot. I did that briefly and realized with 6 kids, it's a hard thing to keep all the wheels on the cart. So gave that up, and we moved to Columbia, South Carolina, and the Lord put it on my heart to begin standing out at the abortion facility. And I was flying corporate for a corporation at the time here in town, and then it just grew. God's hand seemed to be on the ministry, and then 3 years ago went full time, and we haven't looked back.
Tell us a little bit about Moment of Hope. Just kind of give us, since you're an airline pilot, you can kind of give us that 30,000 feet. What is your purpose? What are your goals? What are some things that you are doing with this ministry? And I'm assuming it is just in Columbia is where you're working.
That's correct. Although we have pregnancy care teams all around the state, but wherever the mother comes from, we try to partner her with a local church in her area. And I'll get to that later, but I wanted to tell the story of the founding of the ministry because it goes back to when I was living in Orlando. Our church was 4 doors down from an abortion clinic. And the pastors and elders said, we shouldn't just be ignoring the fact that this is going on 4 doors down from us. We should go out there and do something about it. So we started going out there and praying and trying to talk to the women. And that's how I got started in this ministry. But as I mentioned, my dream had always been to go to the airlines. So I left Orlando and was flying for Continental Connection out of Houston. And when I moved to Columbia, my good friend of mine said, Mark, had you ever considered going out to the abortion facility in Columbia like we used to do in Orlando? And I said to him, I've never thought of that, but I'll pray about it. Well, I was at a Desiring God conference, John Piper. This was right at the time that this friend made this comment. And Dr. Piper was preaching through holiness, and he was mentioning Hebrews 11 about Moses being willing to suffer the reproach of Christ. And when my friend asked me whether or not I was willing to go to the sidewalk in Columbia, I remember arguing with myself. I didn't want to go out there and subject myself to the ridicule, to the mockery of the culture because of the kind of negative stereotypes of pro-life people. And so I really had to struggle with that. But I decided that when I got back to Columbia after that conference, I would go visit and look up if there's even an abortion clinic, and there was. Planned Parenthood is here off of Middleburg Drive. And that 2 weeks later, I went out to the abortion clinic. The very first person I met, as I mentioned, I was a pilot. I had taken a business card, and on the back I wrote, "It's not too late to change your mind. There are caring people that want to help you." As she was going in, I handed her that business card. She came out a few minutes later. I didn't know it, but she had gone in to schedule an abortion. But this time she drove right by me. But as she went up the hill in Middleburg, if you've ever been in there, she went up the hill, and at the top of the hill, she put her brakes on and she turned around and came back to me. And as she rolled down her window, she started to cry and she said, "Can you really help me?" I looked on the seat of her car and saw she had scheduled that abortion. I saw the paper that Planned Parenthood gave her. We exchanged information. I told her about resources in town and began texting her that week. And on Thursday of that week, she sent me a text that said, "Thank you for giving me a moment of hope. I'm not going to go through with the abortion." So that's where the name of the ministry came from. The very first mother changed her mind, and she named the ministry for us.
Wow, that's a great story. It's amazing how God orchestrates things to put a burden in your heart, and then to have a fellow believer challenge you, to be obedient in areas. And it is amazing how God orchestrates and places his people in those areas, and I am very grateful. So that's a very specific story. Tell us the kinds of things that your ministry does. So you've mentioned that this young lady was asked, "How can you help me? Can you really help me?" How are some ways that you do that?
So we really want to do whatever we can to help this mother. Many of them feel pressured, either by financial resources, by their families, by their boyfriend to come and have an abortion. Most of the mothers coming feel trapped, feel scared. They feel like they have nowhere else to turn. So we want to listen to whatever it is that's driving them there and then respond with help. We have found so many churches and Christians want to help however they can, because we believe in the sanctity of life and the preciousness of life in those babies. And so many of these mothers don't want to go through with this. They just feel pressured, like they have no other way. And of course, our culture doesn't help them with this decision for life. The culture, applauds abortion. So what we do, we've helped people with rent. We've helped people with rides. We help people with vehicles. We help people, whatever the need is, we listen and try to present that to the community. And we've just been so amazed at the outpouring of love and support for these mothers. One more story. There was a refugee couple came for an abortion, and this is the power of Jesus. They stopped, and the man started. I said, God, he said something about church. He mentioned church in our conversation as he was going in for an abortion with his wife. And I said, well, Jesus doesn't approve of abortion. And I have never seen anybody since or before, at the name of Jesus, his countenance totally changed, like the fear of God came over this man. And they listened to me, and we went to Lizard's Thicket and talked about all the needs they had. And as they shared those needs, I wrote them down one by one. And then at the end of the conversation, I went back through each of those needs and shared how we could help. And I just watched this woman's countenance go from ice cold to warming. And by the end of our conversation, she was smiling and they were even laughing. Mm. So and this family had 10 children. Okay, so they were a refugee family. 8 of the children were their own, plus they had adopted 2 whose relatives were killed in the refugee camp. So this family had tremendous needs and tremendous burdens, but we had, I think it was 16 churches came together to help this family. We helped them with their rent for a whole year. We rented them a 4-bedroom house because they needed it. But what this showed us was that we couldn't do it ourselves.
Right.
And so we were trying to do it ourselves. I hired Valerie Berry, our program manager, to help us with the relationships with these moms on an ongoing basis. But like Moses in, I think it's Numbers chapter 11, he was overburdened by the needs of the people and by the just, myriad of people. So he appointed 70 elders, and it's like that with us and pregnancy care teams. And this refugee family really showed us the Christian church and his people really want to help. So we came up with this model of pregnancy care teams where we train a local church to be waiting and on standby until a mother in their area has changed her mind and wants a care team. And we're finding, I think it's like a third of the mothers that change their mind do want a care team. And so we have about 25 of those care teams that have either started and finished or are ongoing right now, and 3 more that are pending. So, and Beulah has a care team now, and I'm so thankful for your partnership.
So yeah, we do actually. Valerie came out. We love Valerie. She's a top drawer as well, and very passionate about this ministry. We do have a care team, and we are grateful to be walking alongside a young lady right now. Even we are able to help that. And so, just let me kind of understand some of the things that those care teams do. Is not necessarily a form, even though you did give us some forms and some things that we may consider to do, or some things that may come up. But I would assume that sometimes these ladies come from a variety of support. So some of them may have some support from families. Some of them may be on an island where they can't afford to do the things that their conscience and that the Holy Spirit is guiding them to do, and continuing on with the pregnancy. Then there are some things that local churches like ours can do to celebrate that pregnancy, like by having baby showers and doing those kinds of things. It also gives us an opportunity to walk in a faith relationship with these young ladies, and maybe see them come into a relationship with the Lord through the help and through seeing God's grace and His mercy and His loving people that has surrounded them. So, and then the other thing I want you to speak to, most of your work, or most of these girls are found primarily at the Planned Parenthood. I mean, is that where you kind of station yourself, and then who mans that? Is that just you, and is that just you and Valerie? So I know that's a lot for one question, but
no, that's a good question, and I failed to mention that at the beginning. But so what we do is, and how the ministry started is, I was standing out at the abortion clinic, and my goal was to have someone there every hour they're open. And so they do abortions twice a week. So I was out there every abortion day. And then we thought, well, what if we come on days where they're arriving for their health care appointments? Because they come in for STD testing, they come in for birth control, and they also come in to schedule abortions. So started going out there on healthcare days. And then Valerie came on board, and we started training volunteers. We've trained, well over 100, probably close to 200 volunteers to be out there on the sidewalk. This year for 2020, our goal was to have 2 people there every hour they're open. But what we found is when COVID happened, a lot of our volunteers couldn't come out, and we really ramped up our paid internship program. So we had students that we pay $9 an hour. So if you have anybody interested in this sort of thing, we train them. how to be peaceful, prayerful, law-abiding. We want to be approachable and winsome, but we're out there with gift bags and a sign that says pregnant-free help. Now, we have volunteers that make these really nice gift bags. They cost about $4 each. They have some nice just giveaways and some snacks like granola bars and gummy bears, but they also have our literature in there about ways we can help them. And we always include a gospel tract in there. So I think we've given out over 2,400 of these bags just this year.
Oh, wow.
And each one of those bags has a gospel tract that these people are taking home with them. And so, and as you mentioned, these pregnancy care teams, one of our objectives is, as they grow in their relationship and these women are trusting, we want them to have Bible studies. We want them to hear the gospel. We want them to invite this mom and her family to your church, because under the preaching of the word and through these interactions with these ladies and team members, our desire and prayer is not only for the physical salvation of the baby, but for their souls as well.
Right. And we appreciate the opportunity. Can you give us the one thing that I appreciated about the training? Was Valerie, and she just had so many specific stories of how these young ladies have, they were just overwhelmed by God's goodness and by God's resources to them through the local churches and through other areas. And do you have some specific stories that maybe you could share? I know you have many, but do you have some that maybe you could share with us this morning?
Well, I'll give a story. Mark Sloan is one of our just great volunteers. He's also a board member. He's a retired psychologist with Baptist Hospital. And two of the stories come to mind with Mark. He's just the nicest. He's the nicest guy I know, I think. And so he stands there, and when these cars pull up, they're totally disarmed by his just genuine kindness. And so a story comes to mind, Lee. It was a very young girl. She was 15. She was arriving with her mother, and she met Mark at the top driveway. And Mark just explained, we have help. These are the ways we can help you. And here is a bag with our resources. Would you please take a look at it? And this mother brought her daughter in the parking lot, just happened to pull in right in front of where I was standing in the public right-of-way. And I watched, and for like 10 minutes, they were going through that gift bag and reading everything in there. So when she got out of the car to the mother of the daughter that was coming for the abortion, I said, "Excuse me, I noticed you were reading our material. Is there any way we can help you? Can I take you for a free ultrasound?" And they looked at each other and they kind of shrugged and said, "Yeah, let's do it." So we were able to get them that ultrasound. And then Valerie thought of another ministry in the town called Young Lives, which is an offshoot of Young Life that disciples young high school students that are also pregnant or parenting. So we connected them together, and just so happened that the very next week was their summer camp in the mountains of North Carolina. They give a scholarship to each of these mothers, and they invite them, and if they have a child, to bring their child. Well, this mother got to go. She had never been to a camp before. She got to hear the gospel every day and came back. It was like the best week of her life. Mm-hmm. And so she was connected with the care team. She's been involved with that care team. Her baby's been born, and just this week or maybe last week, the care team bought her second car seat. The baby has outgrown the first one. We got her a second car seat, and they're still in touch. And so it's just the care teams listen to the mothers, and families kind of come alongside them. Not everyone's different. But like you mentioned, the baby shower is a big element. It's such a blessing to put on a baby shower and celebrate this baby with this mother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing those stories. And I'm always amazed at how how God uses those situations to do incredible things in people's lives. There may be, this is probably just our congregation. I tell our guests that probably this will be seen by just our congregation and my mother. But this is a topic that a lot of pastors and a lot of churches are interested in. There are congregations who would love to partner with ministries like yours, especially since you're local, and they can actually, physically participate in some of those things. What are some specific ways? You've mentioned a couple. What are some ways that we can partner a local church, whether we're large or small, or maybe just even individuals partner with you? What are some specific ways that we can do that, or how are ways that maybe we can continue to partner with you on a different level than we currently are?
Sure. So before I forget, we have a website, amoh.org, and on there we have an events page, which has our trainings and our different upcoming prayer events and things like that. So amoh.org. But obviously we always need prayer. It's a spiritual battle out there. And boy, we really are so encouraged when God's people are praying and we see God work. But pregnancy care teams, the church can have more than one pregnancy care team. So that's a way folks can get involved. The gift bags we make, we drop ship the materials to the different churches that put them together for us. And then the volunteers come together and assemble the bags. So that's a way folks can get involved. I mentioned the life intern. This is, it's usually a college student or an older high school student that was as interested in a job where they can get paid instead of, making subs at Subway. They can come and actually save lives and share the gospel. So that's a big need for us. But we do training for the sidewalk volunteers. Our core ministry is the sidewalk. And so folks can come out and just pray silently. But if they'd like to be trained, we'll put them through our sidewalk counseling training, which will teach them kind of how we do our interactions with the clients. We'll give them the resources and tools that they need to feel confident in talking with these mothers, and then redirecting them to life preserving ministries and materials and things like that.
Yeah. So the prayer, if some of our folks wanted to come and be prayer volunteers on site, is there training that they need to go through for that, or do they just show up?
So we do have an orientation for prayer folks, and we can put on a Zoom orientation. Just did that for another church about a month ago. And we also have organized prayer events. We have a quarterly prayer walk where we get a group that comes out, and I lead them around the block where the abortion facility is located, and we pray for specific dimensions of the abortion issue on each side of the block. We'll pray for pro-life ministries on one side of the block. We'll pray for the abortion workers on another side. We'll pray for a moment of hope. We'll pray for the mothers and the abortion clients. And so that's a guided prayer event. And then twice a year, I lead the 40 Days for Life, which is a worldwide prayer campaign. And I am the local leader for that. And for 40 Days for Life, we ask a church to take one day, and raise up 12 volunteers just to come out for 2 hours each and pray from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you have 12 people to cover 2 hours, then you'll have the whole day covered, because we ask folks to come in 2-hour shifts. So you'll have 2 people from 7 to 9, 2 people from 9 to 11, and that covers the whole day. And Beulah would be a big part of those 40 days. Our goal is to get all 40 days covered by individual churches, and I think our record to date is we've had 19 churches. So that's another way. That's September 23rd through November 1st.
Okay. Thank you. And then Financially, how do you gather funds financially? Or is that something that churches can also participate, or individuals? Are there
Absolutely.
other groups that are funding you or helping to
We are
fund?
funded solely by individuals and churches, and our budget continues to grow, and the burden of that continues to grow. This summer, we had, I think, 10 people on our payroll. Those were we have three full-time staff, one part-time staff, and then the rest were the paid interns. And it was really crucial during that time. But we have seen so much fruit just in that period when we had every driveway covered at the abortion facility. They have 5 driveways. So on abortion days, we had a person at each of those driveways with a sign, with a smile, with a wave, and with those gift bags. And we have seen 41 mothers change their mind and choose life this year, which is
Wow.
just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then there's one other thing that I was going to ask you before we get to the prayer requests. Um, is there resistance from Planned Parenthood? Is it hostile from them? I can't imagine people stationing themselves around our facility, basically in opposition to what's going on inside of our building. And I just wonder how is the relationship, or how are you treated there on their facility or on their grounds?
So it's quite surprising. We've helped 4 abortion workers leave, and one of our goals is to really start a relationship with the workers. So we're very friendly towards them. In fact, one of our kind of tactics is we buy gift cards from local fast food restaurants, and occasionally we'll give those out to the workers that will stop. Not all of them will stop, but through that icebreaker, we've had, as I mentioned, 4 workers leave. And so it's not the workers themselves, the paid workers at Planned Parenthood. We have found Planned Parenthood pays them more than the market, but they train them less than the market. So they can't just leave and make the same amount of money with the level of training they have. So they feel trapped. And so our goal is to help them find this God honoring employment away from Planned Parenthood. But where we find the real hostility is from the recruiting from Planned Parenthood's fundraising arm, where they recruit the feminist type folks from the university. They're the ideologues. They come out and they are just so hostile to us. We had one of the escorts. These are the folks that stand in the parking lot with their pink vest, and they walk the people from their car to the door of the abortion clinic so that they won't hear us.
Yeah.
So our goal is to talk to them as they're pulling in the driveway. But if they drive past us, we have about 10 to 15 seconds as they're walking from their car to the door to offer them help, offer them resources, tell them that their baby is alive, that their baby has a heartbeat. But these escorts come and they'll have an umbrella, they'll tell them to ignore us, and they'll distract these. So these are the people that are really hostile to us, not so much the actual workers inside.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been very informative, and I appreciate you so much. Give us some specific ways that maybe we can pray for you and Valerie and your team there, or some specific things that we can pray for your ministry. Maybe some specific things that we can pray that you would challenge us to pray for ourselves as we determine how we can continue our partnership and grow our partnership with a Moment of Hope. So are there some things that this congregation can pray for?
Yes, just for perseverance for our staff and volunteers. It is a spiritual battle, and we feel it. It's can be very discouraging. Uh, just for the Lord's strength and for the Lord's help and for the Lord's encouragement. So that's a big one. But then for the care teams, there are, I think, 11 active care teams right now and 3 more forming. So 14 care teams where mothers are being helped. that pray for wisdom and for, a lot of times these mothers will go cold for a period of time. And what we found is if you persist and you continue to reach out and text, a lot of these mothers, you think they've ignoring you, but they didn't pay their cell phone bill. So all of a sudden you're texting and they're not replying. 2 weeks later, they get the money to pay their cell phone bill and they reply. So these are just things, just wisdom for the care teams. And then financially, as I mentioned, as our ministry grows, our goal was to go from 12 care teams to 24 care teams this year. And since we started care teams, I just counted before this interview, we've had 25 care teams. So we've already met that goal. But along with that comes the burden of just keeping this ministry running. And we know the Lord owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, but humanly speaking, it keeps me up at night.
Yeah. And fundraising is definitely, I believe the enemy uses that to distract us. And I think churches and pastors can get distracted by the budget and how we're going to raise money for this and how we can ever accomplish this. And so, yes, I believe that definitely the enemy certainly is pleased when you are more focused on your fundraising than you are the mission that God has put in front of you. And if churches like ours can come in to help that and to resource that, that is certainly a worthy thing for us to do. And individuals can do that, apart from their church congregation. And I would also just say, add to this, Mark, sometimes we as a smaller congregation, we sometimes excuse ourselves out of doing some things, because the bigger churches are better resourced. They have more people, they have more volunteers that can do those things. But we have found, even with the training and that Valerie has come out and done with us, that we had more than enough to form one team and maybe two teams within our congregation that just came to the training to see what it was about. And so I would just challenge, this is a topic that many of my pastor friends may be watching, and I would just challenge them to take the step toward this ministry. And there are ways that you can help them. There are ways that you can pray for them specifically. You've heard those today. Just to stand with this ministry in the midst of so much that society is against. These guys are standing, I mentioned that maybe you saw, Mark, on your social media pages during the quarantine and the shutdown. Mark, I saw you out in the parking lot standing and speaking to those girls who were going in for abortions during those quarantine, and the media, harassing you, and the police and all those things that we saw. Brother, you are fighting on the front lines of this, and we appreciate you. We love you as a faith congregation and as a pastor here in the Little Richland community, and specifically Beulah Baptist Church. We just want to affirm the work that you are doing and the work that your team is doing, and we are honored and delighted to be a partner with you in this work and in spreading the gospel throughout our community in our city. So thank you so much for being with us today. It has been a very informational and very helpful for us and for me personally to hear from you. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you. And it's just been such a joy. One of the things God has blessed me through this whole thing is just seeing his church, universal, his people that he has, the love that he has, and just his body in action around the community. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, well, it is a blessing to be a partner with you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Partner Connection.